A chord progression is simply a sequence of chords. But a chord progression can be as important to the identity of a piece of music as its melody or its rhythm. And one of the questions we constantly ask ourselves as we're creating our own music is, what chord should come next? So I find that one of the most interesting and rewarding things we can do in music theory is to dig into and analyze some chord progressions. And I'd like to start that process by looking at the beginning of Over the Rainbow. I've written out here in lead sheet form the first 8 measures of Over the Rainbow. Let me play it just so we get it back in our ear. We're going to analyze this chord progression with our Roman numerals. So I want to take you through how that process is going to work. So we start out in the very first measure with a C major chord. Now, what is the Roman numeral of the C major chord, and how we even answer that question? Well, this is actually a pretty simple one. I've written out here, just to remind myself, all of the chords that I can make, all of the triads that I can make in the key of C major, since I've written this melody out in the key of C major. And it turns out that C major is, or the C major triad is actually the very first chord I see right here, and that is the 1 chord. So that means that C major, that first chord, is going to be the 1 chord. And I'm just going to put the C with the colon over on the side here just to remind myself that the frame of reference for all of these Roman numerals is going to be C major. All right, let's check out the next chord. Next chord is A minor. And do I have an A minor chord in my 7 chords in C major? Yes, I do, right here. A minor is the 6th chord. So I'm going to write a 6 right here. The next chord I have is an E minor. Do I have an E minor chord in my collection of 7 triads from C major? And the answer is yes, I do, right here. That's the 3 chord. So I'm going to write a 3 chord here. And then the next chord I have is the D minor chord. Do I have a D minor chord in the key of C major? Yes, I do. It's the 2nd chord. It's the 2 chord. Right here, the Roman numeral 2 chord. So I'm going to put that underneath here. The next chord I have is G major. And do I have a G major? Yes, I do, right here. The G major is the 5 chord, also known as the dominant. So I'm going to put a 5 right under G major. Next, I have an E minor, and we already figured out that E minor is the 3 chord. And then an A minor, and we already figured out that A minor is the 6th chord, so I'm going to put a 6 right under here. And let me move over here to the second half of this melody. Okay, next chord we have is a D minor chord, and we actually figured this out. I'll write it down here again just so we remember. D minor is the 2, so I'm going to put the 2 chord here. Then G major. That's going to be the 5. We already figured that one out too, also known as the dominant. Then we have a C major chord. And a C major chord we figured out was the 1 chord, also known as the tonic. Our next chord is the A minor chord. And we already figured out that that is the 6th chord. So that's 6. Then the D minor again, and we know that that's 2. And then we have the G major again, and we know that that's 5, or the dominant. And then we come back to the 1 or the tonic at the beginning. So now we've created a little way of looking at this chord progression using Roman numerals. And I'm just going to play through the chords and just shout out the Roman numerals, just so we can hear this. So we have 1, 6, 3, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5, 1. And there are a couple of really interesting things that we see already and hear already. First interesting thing is you can hear just from the chord progression, just from that sequence of chords, it sounds familiar. It sounds like Over the Rainbow without having any of the melody at all. So again, part of the identity of this song is embedded in its chord progression. But notice we have these patterns that keep popping up over and over again. I'm going to draw your attention to this one because this is one that you'll see a lot in music. And this, where we end here with the 2 to the 5 to the 1. We see that right there, and we see that actually 2 measures earlier in measures 5 and 6. And then we have something that looks almost like a 2 to a 5 to a 1 right here, except it doesn't quite go to the, doesn't quite make it to the 1. It goes 2 to the 5 to the 3. There are a lot more of these patterns that we can investigate and look at, but I just wanted to point out those. But this gives us a really interesting picture of how the chords move in this particular piece of music.